Here's something I've noticed after years of talking with smart, capable women who want something in their lives to change. Most of them aren't stuck because they don't have any motivation. They're certainly not lazy or incapable. They're just usually not confused in the way they think they are. A lot of the time, they know something needs to change. They know the conversation they've been avoiding. They know the decision they keep circling. They even know the part of their life that feels too small, too heavy, too dishonest, or too familiar in a way that just no longer feels right. But they keep waiting. Not because they don't care, but because they think the change has to be bigger than it actually needs to be. They think it has to be the full decision, the entire plan, the complete reinvention or perfect explanation, that version of change that finally proves to themselves and everybody else that they are serious. And while they wait for that version, nothing really changes. The same decision stays undecided. The same conversation stays unsaid. The same desire keeps getting pushed into someday, and that same pattern keeps repeating. That's what we're talking about today. Not the big dramatic change, not the big life overhaul, not the version where everything is suddenly clear and easy. We're talking about a micro pivot. A micro pivot is the smallest honest move that interrupts that pattern you've been living in. Small enough that you can actually do it, but honest enough that it truly matters, and clear enough that afterward, you know something shifted. And that matters because small and honest beats impressive and unsustainable every single time. Welcome to How to Lose the Weight, the podcast for women ready to stop waiting for someday and live life now. I'm your host, Holly Toscanini, and I'm here to help you break free from perfectionism, self-doubt, and the someday mindset. Together, we'll dive into real conversations about self-trust, empowerment, and living authentically. If you're ready to reconnect with your intuition and step into your power, you're in the right place. Let's lose the weight and start living fully right now. Welcome back to How to Lose the Weight. I'm Holly Toscanini, and this is the third week of the Initiate phase of our Weight Framework series. Now, over the last few episodes, we've been talking about the pattern that keeps women waiting. And I want to be clear, when I say waiting, I'm not talking about doing nothing. Most of the women I work with are doing a lot. They're working, they're managing responsibilities, caring for other people, thinking ahead, holding things together. They're usually the person everybody else counts on. So the waiting I'm talking about is certainly not laziness. It's the pattern of postponing yourself while you keep everything else functioning. It's waiting to speak until you know nobody's going to be upset by what you say, or waiting to make a change until you feel 100% ready. Waiting to want what you want until you can explain it perfectly, or to choose yourself. So waiting to start until you know you won't fail is the kind of waiting I'm talking about. It's a kind of waiting we're here to lose. In episode 118, we talked about the 80% start, beginning before everything feels perfectly ready. In episode 119, we talked about the courage confidence sequence, the idea that confidence usually comes after you take action, not before. And today we're talking about a tool that makes that sustainable, the micro pivot, because you can take one brave action. You can have one clear moment. You can finally send the email, say the thing, make the appointment, or admit the truth. But if the move is too big, too dramatic, or too dependent on perfect conditions, it can be really hard to do again. And self-trust isn't built from one big moment. It's built from repeated proof. Small moves, honest actions, kept promises. The micro pivot is how you begin to build that truth. Let's start with this all or nothing trap because it's one of the most common patterns I see in women who genuinely want to change their lives. The all or nothing trap sounds like this. If I can't do the whole thing, what's the point? Or if I can't make the full change, the small version really doesn't count. Or if I can't commit to 100% completely doing it, maybe I shouldn't start at all. If I can't do it perfect, I'm just going to wait until I can. And I get it. There is a part of you that does not want to pretend, right? You don't want to tell yourself you're changing if nothing is actually changing. You don't want to make a tiny move and then act like you've transformed your whole life. That makes sense. I get it. But here's the problem. The all or nothing standard usually produces nothing. Not because you don't want the change, but because the whole version of the change often requires more than you have right now. More energy, more time, more support, more certainty, more clarity, more courage, more emotional capacity, maybe. And if the only version of change that counts is the complete version, then that first move is never going to happen. This is how a woman can spend months, years, even decades waiting for the real change while the next honest step keeps sitting right in front of her. She wants to write again, but thinks if she can't commit to a full writing schedule or writing the novel, it just doesn't count. Or she wants to speak up in her relationship, but she thinks if she can't explain everything perfectly, she should just stay quiet. Or she wants to explore a new direction in work, but because she doesn't know where it's going to lead, she doesn't do anything. Or she wants more space for herself. But if she can't create a full spa day, she doesn't protect the 1 hour she actually has. This is where women get stuck, not because they don't care, but because they only trust the big version. Now, the micro pivot works because it lowers the entry point without lowering the truth, and that's important. A micro pivot does not mean dream smaller, and it doesn't mean settle, and it's certainly not a way to convince yourself that a tiny action is enough forever. It means, what is the smallest, honest move I can make today? Not the most impressive or the complete, the honest move. Because one honest movement has power. Honest sentence can change a conversation. One protected hour can change your relationship to your own desire. One clear no can change the way you see your own boundaries. One appointment can move something from I should really deal with this to I'm taking care of it. One small decision can prove that you're no longer waiting for perfect clarity before you participate in your own life. Now, most real change doesn't start with a whole plan. It starts with just one small thing you stop negotiating away, and then another, and then another. And over time, those small things create something solid. You start to trust yourself because you've got evidence. You've got proof that you can tell the truth, or proof that you can take up space, or proof that you can move before you feel 100% ready. Now you have proof that you can keep a promise to yourself, even when life isn't perfectly arranged around your self-growth. That's what a micropivot is for. A micropivot, if I want to define it clearly, is really the smallest honest move that interrupts that pattern. It's small because if it's too big, you're probably not going to do it. Not because you're weak, but because your real life has limitations. You've got responsibilities and relationships and work. And I don't know, maybe you're like me and you're a caregiver, or you're dealing with health changes and low energy and hormones and stress and money concerns, all of it. A season of life that is already pretty full. So small matters, right? But honest matters just as much, because not every small action is a micro pivot. Some small actions are just avoidance in a more acceptable form, like researching the same thing for another week. Might make you feel productive, but if you've already got enough information and what you really are avoiding is making the decision, that's not a pivot. Making a better plan may feel responsible, but what if you actually need is just to send the email, or the plan is not the pivot? See, talking to one more person about the same issue might feel helpful, but if you already know what's true and you're trying to get somebody else to give you permission, that's not a pivot either. A micro pivot is the move that brings you into reality. You asked the question, you blocked the time, you opened the document or told somebody what you actually want. Maybe you spent 20 minutes on the thing you keep saying matters to you and stopped treating your own needs like they only matter after everybody else is comfortable. That is the pivot. Let me give you a couple of examples. So, what about the conversation you keep avoiding? Maybe there is something you need to say, not a dramatic confrontation, not a full emotional history, just one sentence. Maybe it's, I need help with this, or I can't make that decision today, or I know this might be a disappointment, but I just can't take that on. You see, for a woman who's spent years keeping the peace, one honest sentence like that may not feel small, but it is a micro pivot because it interrupts that pattern. The old pattern is silence. The old pattern is over-explaining. The old pattern is saying yes quickly and resenting it later. A micro pivot is one clear sentence that tells the truth sooner. What about the thing you keep saying you want to start? Maybe there's something you want to begin, like a creative project or a business idea, or maybe you want to take a class, or maybe it's just making a move to a different kind of work, or a return to something that you used to really love to do. But every single time you think about starting over, your mind floods with reasons why you're not ready. You don't know enough. Other people are already doing it better. You don't have enough time. Maybe you're going to embarrass yourself. Or what if you find out you're actually not any good at it? So you wait. But the waiting may look productive. I get it. It might look like researching or planning or listening to more podcasts or organizing notes or talking about the idea endlessly. And I get it, some preparation is useful, but preparation becomes a problem when it turns into a place to hide. A micro pivot might be spending a few minutes actually working on the thing, writing the first messy paragraph, telling one person you trust what your idea really is, or creating the outline or putting a date on the calendar. Not the whole project, not the full launch, not the complete reinvention, but one honest move that takes the idea out of your head and puts it out there into the world. But what about the need you keep overriding? Maybe the pattern is not about doing more. Maybe the pattern is that you keep ignoring what you need. You need rest, but you keep pushing through. You need more space, but you keep making yourself available. You need support, but you keep saying, I'm fine. You need time to think, but you answer immediately because you don't want anyone to be disappointed in you. A micro pivot might be pausing before you say yes. It might be taking the hour you already said you needed. It might be asking someone else to handle the thing, or choosing clothes that fit your body now instead of punishing yourself with what used to fit. It might be making the appointment you've been putting off. The point is not to turn self-care into another project. The point is to stop overriding yourself automatically. Sometimes the micro pivot is not adding something. Sometimes it's interrupting that automatic yes. The automatic, I'll handle it, no problem, I can make it work. The micro pivot asks, what would change if I stopped disappearing from my own life in small, ordinary ways? That's the work. So let's make this practical. Here is how to choose your micro pivot this week. Step 1, name what you're waiting for. So finish this sentence. I'll do it when. I'll do it when I feel more confident. I'll do it when things calm down. I'll do it when I know exactly what I want. I'll do it when I have more time. I bet you can hear yourself in some of those. What about I'll do it when I have more money, or when nobody's going to be upset about it, or when I can do it perfectly, or when everybody else has gotten what they need, then I'll have time for myself. This sentence matters because it shows you the condition you've placed on your own movement. Now, some conditions are real. I get it. Money is a real thing. Health can be a real issue, and caregiving is definitely real. Work demands, energy limits, all of it real. The unwaiting method is not about pretending your life is simple when we all know it's not. But a real constraint does not always mean there's no possible move. It means the move has to fit the life you're actually living. So, after you name the condition, ask yourself, is this a true stop sign, or is this a condition I've been using to postpone myself? Because that question can be very revealing. Sometimes I don't have time means I don't have an entire weekend, which is probably true, but do you have 15 or 20 minutes? Sometimes I don't know what I want means I don't know the entire path. I can't see the end result, which may also be true. But do you know the next honest yes or the next honest no? Do you know what you're tired of pretending is fine? Because all of that counts. You don't always need the whole answer before you make a move. Sometimes you only need the next honest piece of the puzzle. Step 2, find the move that sort of crosses that line. A micro pivot should put you on the other side of that condition. So if your condition is, I'll start when I feel more confident, then the micro pivot happens before the confidence arrives. You tell one person what you're working on. You spend 20 minutes on your idea. You sign up for a class. You send a message. You take the move while confidence is still sort of catching up. If your condition is, I'll speak up when I know nobody's going to be upset, then the micro pivot happens before you have guaranteed approval. You say the sentence. You make the request. You tell the truth without over-explaining it for 20 minutes. If your condition is, I'll focus on myself when everybody else is taken care of, then the micro pivot happens before everybody else is settled. Because if you wait until no one needs anything from you, you might be waiting a very long time. The move might be protecting that 1 hour. It might be declining one request or letting somebody else be responsible for something that they are perfectly capable of handling. The question is, if I take this action, am I still waiting for the condition to be met? If the answer is yes, it may be more preparation. If the answer is no, that's probably not the pivot. Step 3, make it specific. A micro pivot has to be specific enough to do what it needs to do. Not, I'm going to prioritize myself. That sounds good, but it's kind of vague. Try, on Thursday afternoon, I'm going to take 1 hour for the project I keep saying matters to me. Not, I'm going to be more honest. Try, the next time I'm asked to take on something I don't have capacity for, I'm going to say, I can't take that on this week. Not, I'm going to work on my confidence. Instead, try, I'm going to send the message I've been rewriting in my head. Specificity matters because vague intentions are really easy to avoid. A clear micro pivot answers, what am I doing? When am I doing it? What might get in the way? How can I make it easier to follow through? That's how the move becomes real. Step 4, write down what happened. After you take that micro pivot, after you make that move, write down one sentence. That's all. One sentence. I said no and it felt uncomfortable, but I felt relieved. I sent the email and now I have more information. I worked on an idea for 20 minutes and it feels less imaginary. I asked for help and I noticed how hard that was, and I survived. I took the hour and nothing fell apart. The point is not to prove that everything went perfectly. The point is to create evidence that you acted, evidence that you returned to yourself, evidence that fear did not get the final vote. And over time, those small pieces of evidence really matter. They become the foundation for self-trust. Not because you talked yourself into believing you're confident, because you watched yourself do something different. I want to be very clear about this. The micro pivot is not another way to put more pressure on yourself. It's not a productivity trick. It's not a way to squeeze one more thing into a life that is already pretty full. Sometimes the micro pivot is an action, but sometimes it's a pause. Sometimes it's a no. Sometimes it's not answering right away. Sometimes it's asking for help or letting something be imperfect, or maybe just allowing somebody else to be disappointed without rushing in to fix it. This is especially important for women who are used to being the reliable one, the one who handles it, the one who figures it all out, who adjusts, the woman who says, it's fine, even when it isn't. Because for those women, the micro pivot may not be about doing more. It may be about interrupting the pattern of automatic self-abandonment. And that is not a small thing. It may happen in a small moment, but it's not small in its effect. This is exactly the kind of work we do inside the unwaiting method. We look at where you are waiting, the decision you keep circling, the conversation you keep avoiding, that desire you keep minimizing, or the boundary you keep explaining away, that part of you that keeps saying, not yet. And then we find the micro pivot that fits your actual life, not your fantasy life, your actual life, the one with responsibilities and relationship and work and money concerns and family needs, all of the real things that make change more complicated than a motivational quote would suggest. The goal isn't to turn your life upside down. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself inside that life. That's really the work. Seeing the pattern, hearing yourself clearly, taking one honest move, and then building enough proof that you start to believe, I can trust myself to move. Not because you feel fearless, but because you are no longer waiting for fear to leave before you get started. I'll say more about the program at the end, but for now, I want you to stay with the practice. Because whether or not you ever work with me, this is something you can get started doing today. So your practice this week is one micro pivot. Not a complete life plan or a full reinvention or 7 extra steps. One micro pivot. And here's the process. First, finish the sentence, I'll do it when. Second, ask, is this a true stop sign or is this a condition I've been using to postpone myself? Third, choose the smallest honest move that puts you on the other side of that condition. Fourth, make it specific. What will you do? When will you do it? What might get in the way? How can you make it easier? And after you do it, write down one sentence about what happened and how it felt. That's it. And please notice the goal is not to feel amazing afterwards. Sometimes you will, and you might even feel proud of yourself, but sometimes you're going to feel a little uncomfortable. Sometimes you might feel a little nervous. Sometimes you might just feel relieved. And sometimes you may wonder why something so small felt so hard. And that's okay. The goal is not to feel perfect. The goal is to move honestly. One small, honest move is enough to get started. Now, if you take one thing from today's episode, I hope it's going to be this. You don't need the impressive version of change to begin changing. You need the honest version, the one that you can do in your real, actual day-to-day life, the one that interrupts that waiting pattern, the one that makes it impossible to say, I did nothing. Small and honest beats impressive and sustainable. Not because your dreams are small, not because you should settle, not by any means, and not because real change has to be hard. It has to be livable. It has to fit inside your actual life long enough for you to repeat it. And repeating honest action is what builds trust. One honest move, one micro pivot, one piece of proof that you're no longer waiting for the perfect conditions to choose yourself. To help you with this, I created the Intuitive Pivot Planner, and it's free. It walks you through the exact process we talked about today. Name what you're waiting for, choose your micro pivot, make it specific, take the move, write down what happened. You can find the link in the show notes and in the description beneath this video. If you've been listening to this series and thinking to yourself, I need more than just one episode. I need someone to help me actually walk through this in my own life. I want you to know something is coming. In September 2026, I'm opening the founding round of the Unwaiting Method, an 8-week group coaching program for midlife women who are done living in preparation mode. This is the beta cohort, which means it will be intimate. You're going to have direct access to me, and you're going to be part of shaping the program from the inside as we move through the full WAIT framework together. We're going to look at where you're waiting, what it's costing you, and what you actually want, and then the honest moves that can help you stop postponing yourself. Not through hype and not through pressure, and not by pretending your real life responsibilities don't exist, but through a simple, supported process that helps you become the woman who stops negotiating against herself. If that's been calling to you, the waitlist is open now. Spots will be limited, and waitlist members are going to hear about it first. You can find the link in the show notes or on my website, hollytoscanini.com. Next week, we move into the final phase of the WAIT framework series, the T phase, trust. Episode 121 is called Feeling Behind in Life, Why It's Not Too Late, and What to Do with the Years You Can't Get Back. Because when women finally start to move, something unexpected can show up alongside that momentum. Grief. The ache of realizing how long you've waited, how many years you spent asking for permission, how many times you told yourself not yet. That grief is real, and it deserves to be named. And it deserves something better than a quick, it's never too late, even when that may be true. So if you've ever felt the sadness of time that passed while you were waiting to feel ready, that episode is for you. And I'll see you then. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to How to Lose the Weight. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you found value in this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It really helps the show reach more women like you who are ready to step into their power. For more insights and inspiration, follow me on Instagram at Holly Toscanini or visit hollytoscanini.com. Until next time, remember, stop waiting and start living.